way most people talk about this book, I was expecting to have to force myself to continue the series. Hey guys, for those of you who don't know, my name is Faith and thank you so much for watching. Today we're going to talk about 5 popular books that I feel like everybody hated except for me. Now obviously they are popular books, so I'm sure there are other people out there who like them, but for me, at least 90% of the content that I see about every single one of these books is hate for the book. They're also all a part of series, and for these series, whenever I see ranking videos for them, these books are always ranked very last. I'm going to be spoiling some of the books that I talk about, so I'm going to put timestamps of when I talk about each book in the description below. The first book we have is Iron Flame. I love this book, and I remember reading it and then getting it online and finally like watching content for it, and all I saw was hate. Listen, do I agree that Violet's back and forth trust with Xaden did get kind of repetitive? Yeah, but guys, I gotta be honest, I feel like I would have acted the exact same way. I feel like it's easy from an outside perspective to be like, oh, I love Xaden, just forgive him already. But from Violet's perspective, part of the reason that her friend Liam is dead is because of Xaden's lies. She feels like if he had told her, she might have been more prepared going into that, and then she could have saved Liam or prevented him from dying. So I personally think her feelings throughout this entire book are very valid, and y'all are hating on her way too much. I also feel like another complaint about this book is that it was rushed, and I'm not going to deny that she wrote it fast. I definitely think that she did. However, I also think it's crazy hypocritical for you guys to be like, oh, give us that next book, give us the next book, give us the next book, and then the next book comes out and you complain that it was rushed. Maybe if people stop pressuring the author and the publishing company to get that next book out ASAP, they wouldn't feel so rushed. And that does not just go for Iron Flame, that goes for literally any book ever. And if you are going to pressure them, you cannot turn around and then complain that it was rushed. I really just love this book, and I really don't think there could be an Empyrean book that I don't just absolutely love. So yeah, I think this book is way overhated. And then we have Twisted Love, and I love this book. I honestly don't understand the hate for this book at all. I'm pretty sure that most of the hate is aimed at Alex and they just don't like him as an MMC, but I've said this a billion times. I'm gonna say it another time. I love an MMC who is obsessed with the FMC, and that is literally Alex. So I love him. I know a lot of people think that that scene at the end is cringy where he is singing to her. Guys, I have to be honest here. I didn't cringe, and I cringe at everything. I get secondhand embarrassment so easily. Didn't get it for that scene. And honestly, I don't even know why, because I've read basically that scene in other books before, and every single time I cringe. I didn't in this book. I feel like part of that is because like when people read stuff like that, they automatically assume that they're just like really bad at it, so people think that he's like a bad singer. But to try and combat that secondhand embarrassment I get, I always imagine them being like the best of the best. So I was picturing like Hosier type singing when he was singing to her, and I feel like most people were picturing a really bad singer, like, I don't know, I don't want to call out anybody for being a bad singer, but like just a bad singer. I also feel like a ton of people hate him for the things he said about Ava when they were being held at gunpoint. But dare I say, that's not the worst thing a man in one of these books did. Listen, I love Josh Chen, but I think what he did to Jules and Twisted Hate was worse than what Alex did to Ava in this book. So for people who don't like Alex because of that, I do find it weird when they don't give the same amount or more hate to Josh Chen. But to each their own. I love this book. I love Alex. I love Ava. I think this book is way overhated. And next we have Throne of Glass. I actually just learned very recently, I'm talking within the last 2 weeks, that people don't like this book. She wrote this book when she was 16, and you can kind of tell, for example, with her overuse of the exclamation point. And there's a clear progression in her writing from this book to Kingdom of Ash and even into her other series. However, I still don't think this is a bad book at all. And honestly, to set up that big of a series at 16 is a feat in itself. This is also one of the shortest fantasy books that I've ever read, and honestly, I kind of wish there were more shorter fantasy books. Not that I don't like long books, I definitely do, but sometimes it's just nice to read a short little fantasy book. I also just really enjoyed the plot of this book, and I thought it was really fun and engaging. So once again, I think this book is overhated. And next up, we have Mile High. Unlike all the other books in this video, with this book, I was actually aware that people don't really like this book before I read it. And y'all had me scared because I had already bought the entire series, and for me, I feel like if I buy the entire series before I actually started it, I automatically just won't like it because that's just my luck. And with the way most people talk about this book, I was expecting to have to force myself to continue the series, but luckily that is not what happened. I'm somebody who won't continue a series if I don't like the first book, so thankfully I loved this book. I was genuinely confused when I was reading this because I was like, there is no way that this is the book that y'all are hating on so hard. This book is pretty long for a contemporary romance, and I definitely think that there are chapters or scenes that could have been cut out just because they didn't drive the story forward. So when people dislike it for the length, I can somewhat understand that. And I also always tell myself that I don't like the reformed playboy trope, but then every single time I read a well-written reformed playboy book, I enjoy it. And Xander's in this book is a reformed playboy, so I can't understand if people don't like that aspect about him. However, when people hate on this book for any other reason than the two that I just listed, I don't get it. I feel like Stevie is very relatable for a lot of people, so I don't really understand any hate towards her at all. And Xander's, yes, is a reformed playboy. I can understand why people don't like that specific aspect about him. However, he honestly switches up pretty fast into the book, and really the second he switches into liking Stevie, it stays that way and he doesn't have eyes for anybody else, as it should be. I do just find it odd that this book is hated significantly more than every other book in the series when it's really not that different. Other than this one being a little bit long, the writing stays pretty consistent throughout her entire series. So seriously, other than those two reasons that I listed, I think y'all are hating on this book way too much. And lastly, we have A Court of Thorns and Roses. I didn't learn that people hated this book until probably 6 months to a year after I finished the series, and I was shocked to find that out. I have seen probably hundreds of videos of people saying, oh yeah, the first one sucks, but just wait until the second one and then it gets good. What? I wouldn't have continued the series. I've seen people say that it's really boring. I personally didn't feel that way at all. I also see people say that the first 100 pages are really hard to understand, and I actually found this to be one of the easier to understand fantasy books that I've read, but either way, it's a fantasy book. Pretty much every fantasy book is going to be confusing at first. Is it my favorite in the series? No, but it's not my least favorite either. And I also learned that people find Feyre annoying. Guys, I don't know what is up with the Feyre hate. It's not allowed here. I love Feyre. If y'all are gonna hate on anybody in this book, let it be Amarantha, Tamlin, but not Feyre. That being said, obviously you are allowed to dislike characters, and I know I don't like books where I don't like the main character, so I can understand that if you didn't like Feyre, you wouldn't like this book. However, I do find it weird when people don't like the main character or the book itself and then continue the series and then poorly rate every book in the series, but that goes for every book series, not just this one. This one's definitely a different vibe than the rest of the series, especially books 2 and 3. However, it was meant to be a standalone novel, so I can understand why it feels different. But I'm so glad that she continued the series and we got the rest of the books, and now we're getting ACOTAR 6 on October 27th and book 7 on January 12th. I cannot wait. I am so excited. And I already know that when people reread ACOTAR for books 6 and 7, they're gonna skip the first book. And guys, please don't do that. If you didn't like it, please give it a second chance. I thought this book was fun. I thought it was exciting. I thought it was engaging. So again, I think this book is overhated. So those are 5 books that I feel like everybody hated except for me. And yes, they're all still popular books, so obviously some people like them. However, they're all part of a series, and these books are only popular due to a different book in the series being so loved. I really will just never get the hate for these books, guys. I really hope that you guys don't hate these books as much as everybody else does. And with that, that is all that I have for you guys today. Be sure to like and subscribe and follow my Instagram and my TikTok, which are linked in the description below for more bookish content. I hope you all have a fantastic day. Love you guys. Bye!